Hello and welcome everyone to the first episode of Celestia On-air, Deciphering STEM, the podcast of SEDS Celestia, the Astronomy, Astrophysics and Space Tech Club of Pittsburgh. We are your hosts for today. I am Yashi.
And I am Abdul. Today with us we have a very special guest, Isabella Toress, the president of the MIT chapter of SEDS. The MIT chapter of SEDS is one of the founding chapter of SEDS, and Isabella is the president. This is the current president of that. We are glad to have you here, Izzy. We call her Izzy.
Thank you.
How are you doing, Izzy? Let's start with that. How is the world like?
It's all pretty good. At MIT right now, we have a week-long break because there's a holiday in the United States this week, so we just started the break, and so it's feeling pretty good not to have homework.
It must be really constant, the whole barrage of tests and assignment. And
yeah.
It's how long is the break?
A week long. Nice.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's also part of the time when they're moving everyone off campus because people who were on campus were only allowed to be there until Thanksgiving because they think that the coronavirus will get worse after then, and so they're moving everyone off.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there were still people on campus.
Was it just the PhD students or even seniors of first degree?
Yeah. All the seniors, undergraduate, all of the graduate students, and then some students who applied for like special exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
The next semester, it'll be everyone except for the seniors.
Oh, that's a depressing thought. But jumping off from that amazingly brilliant thought, we'll go with, okay. First of all, we'd like to congratulate you for becoming the president of SEDS MIT. Let's start with telling us about how the experience you have had with the club so far.
Right. So I joined MIT SEDS when I was just starting out. They had like a booth for the big clubs midway where you could like pick which clubs you want to join. And one of the things I noticed on their poster was that they wanted to do a CubeSat or like a small satellite, and I was really interested in that from high school, and so I came up and asked about it, and apparently they didn't have anyone to lead it yet, so I started out leading a project, and from there I moved on to like doing other things with the club as well. We also had a business pitch competition that year, and now I'm helping plan a lot of our social events as well. So it's been a pretty fun time.
And how has the quarantine been going for the club?
Right.
How is the club functioning during quarantine?
During quarantine, we are still doing general body meetings. We get fewer people to come to them because normally we would provide food as an incentive. But now it's kind of more difficult to do that via Zoom. But we're still holding them, which is nice. We're holding lots of space-themed events like space trivia nights, movie nights, that sort of thing. And our technical projects are actually still continuing as well. We have regular weekly CubeSat meetings. We have weekly zero gravity experiment meetings. The only thing that hasn't really continued has been our outreach program, since a lot of those were in person.
It must be really hard to carry out the hardware-oriented projects like CubeSat because you don't have access to the actual hardware. So how are you coping with online projects? Yeah.
Well, our project is mostly in the earlier stages right now, so we're actually just starting to purchase the hardware. And there are some difficulties with that in that we don't know exactly who we're sending it to, and so we have to work out with the school where our hardware is going to get sent once we purchase it. But luckily, as far as work for our members goes, a lot of it is still web-based. A lot of it is still writing up proposals and doing analyses, running simulations. And so a lot of that can be done virtually pretty easily. Hopefully, we will soon be back in person. And CubeSat parts have extremely long lead times. The current parts that we're trying to buy, once we finally put in the order, it'll be like another 7 weeks before we get it. So maybe the pandemic will have solved itself before our parts arrive. Who knows?
Yes, 7 weeks. I mean,
7
that's the
weeks.
hope.
I mean,
But
we hope that the pandemic gets better during that period.
fingers crossed.
Fingers
But
crossed.
yes, I mean that's exciting. But it's not just at MIT, is it? We have interned with NASA, and that's amazing. How was your experience at NASA? How was it different from MIT? What did you learn with the environment that NASA provided?
Right. So this was last summer. I was interning specifically at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory with JPL, which is run by jointly with Caltech. And it originally, when I was going to go, I was going to work on testing for Perseverance, the Mars 2020 rover. But then the pandemic hit, and so plans changed because that work was going to be mostly hands-on. So I switched to something that was more of test planning for Europa Clipper. And so Europa Clipper is this probe that's getting sent to one of the moons of Jupiter because it's an icy moon, and they think that there's an ocean beneath the surface of the ice that could potentially harbor life. And the best thing is to bring a lander there, but before we bring a lander there, we have to learn more. We have to verify there actually is an ocean. We have to look at features of the surface to determine how hard it would be to get under into that ocean. So being a part of that mission in itself is incredibly exciting. And then specifically, I was looking at test planning. So this was something I didn't realize before I started, which is that when you run tests for space missions at NASA, you would think that it would happen after you've already built the project, but it actually runs throughout the whole project cycle because they start out with planning right in the beginning of what test they want to do. And even once it's already launched, as was going to be the case with Perseverance, you're still running tests on different things you want to do. And which tests are done first before it's launched is just a matter of priority. And then beyond that, the people at JPL are all incredibly friendly and very willing to help you figure out where you want to be. And so there were a lot of people there who were helping me figure out, oh, do I want to go to grad school or not? Or which section of JPL would I actually want to work in? It wasn't like they said, oh, you have to stay in the section you're currently interning in. And no, they encouraged me to go talk to other people and see if I was interested in something else. So it's a really friendly environment, and I felt like I really learned a lot.
So it was not just like an internship. You're just working there, and just at the end of the day, you just go back home. And in this case, you just shut down your computer. But it's more like a holistic experience at that internship, right? So how do you feel it's different from your normal club activities and the normal projects that you are in? How do you feel it's different?
Certainly the work was a lot more specific because on a smaller project, you usually get to put your hands on a lot of different areas of the project. But when you have something so large as a JPL mission, you have a lot of people working on very specific things. Like I was working specifically on test planning. And so first off, it was a lot more specific. That also meant that I got to learn a lot more in depth about what I was doing. I think it was also different from my other activities, just in that it was a lot more career focused and thinking about the long term. Because with some of our clubs, we're thinking about what we can do in the time while we're at college. But with an internship, you're thinking about what you want to do with the rest of your life. And so there's a lot of trying to figure out what is really your purpose here.
That would have been really insightful for you, right?
Yeah.
Pointing you in the direction in which you want to go.
Yeah. It was actually really useful for this year as well because one of the big conversations was about whether or not grad school is necessary. And I discovered a lot of the areas that I'm more interested in require graduate school, just because they're so competitive and because they want to see more experience working on space systems. So before I hadn't planned on going to grad school, and then I changed my mind, and now I'm changing everything about my plan for what I do with the last 2 years of college so that I can hopefully get into grad school and then get to where I want to be at JPL.
So yeah, in that essence, what kind of change in interest, which specific field of space tech are you interested in for grad school? Or is it just general right now?
So at JPL specifically, basically they have different groups who focus on different areas of systems engineering. And so whereas I was on testing before, I found that I was actually might be more interested in mission formulation. So coming up with the initial ideas for things and making the first architecture for mission sounds just really interesting to me. That obviously I'd like to do an internship there first before I make up my mind, but that group really requires that you have experience working on space systems. Translating that to grad school, I haven't figured out exactly what research area I want to focus in, but I know generally that I want to be working on something that goes to space, and that ideally if I could bring it from the beginning of a mission to it operating in space, because that's what JPL said they were interested in. They want to see that I have actual experience on a space mission, so that when I go to formulate a mission, I understand the types of things that are required from the start.
Those are some really lofty goals, and we wish you all the best for all of your future plans.
Thank you.
So what did they expect at the end of the internship? What did they expect from you? What kind of contributions had they expected from you by the end of the internship?
Right. So I helped develop a concrete test list that they could continue expanding on as the mission continued. And I also, as part of something that all the interns had to do as an exit, we had to write up what we had done in a final report and then give a little presentation to some of the people that we had met at the internship. It was fairly straightforward because I had a specific project the whole time I was there, and so I just kept working on the project and saw how far I could get it over the course of 2.5 or 3 months.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. But okay, that's incredibly complex and specific to the space tech. And moving, I think that's like a good jumping off point now to something more, let's say nerdy. Nerdy was the word I went for, but lighthearted is the word we should go for in the podcast, right? But anyway, we know you're a big fan of Harry Potter and Star Wars, and well, most of our audience is going to be a fan of Harry Potter and has seen the movies or read the books. And they know about Quidditch.
I hope they've read the books.
But I hope, yes. But yes, Quidditch. Everybody knows about Quidditch as a fantasy sport. But like Quidditch is actually a real sport, right? And you have played about it. Why don't you tell the audience about how the real Quidditch is played today?
Right. So real Quidditch or Muggle Quidditch. It's one of the other clubs I'm involved in at MIT. I'm actually the vice captain of the MIT Quidditch team. What we do is we have these hoops at the end of the field that are constructed out of like PVC pipes and that sort of thing. We then have a deflated volleyball that's used as the quaffle. And so we have the traditional setup of 3 chasers, 2 beaters, a keeper, and a seeker. And the chasers and the keeper try to get the ball into the other team's hoops. Can go through from any direction, gets you 10 points. Meanwhile, the beaters are using 3 different dodge balls, or I guess they're more kickballs, as their bludgers. And they try to hit you with the balls. If you get hit, you have to get off of your broom and run back and touch your hoops, and before you can re-enter play. That reminds me, we run around on broomsticks. It has to be, a lot of people just use PVC pipes for that as well. But you have to keep it between your legs at all times, and it works as kind of a handicap, honestly, because it makes it harder to run, and it makes it so that quite often you can only catch or throw with one hand. So it makes it a bit more difficult. And then 18 minutes into the game, we release the Snitch, which is a human dressed with yellow shorts and a tennis ball hanging out the back of their shorts. And the Seekers have to get that tennis ball from the Snitch. So it's a very chaotic game, and it can get quite intense. It's full contact sport with honestly very little protection, so injuries are quite common, but it's a lot of fun. I started playing when I was in high school, actually, and I know a few other people on the team did as well. And we've also been trying to continue that as best as we can during this
So, how long have
semester.
you been playing this for?
I guess that would make it 4 years. I've played 2 years in college. I played my junior year of high school, but I guess it dropped off my senior year of high school, so I guess that's 3 years total, but it was 4 years ago that I started.
I mean, it sounds incredibly fun, especially that niche part. And
Yeah,
have you ever gotten like injured or something while playing this? You said that it's a full contact sport and there's very little protection. So like, have you ever gotten injured playing this?
personally, I haven't gotten much beyond bruises because it depends a little bit on how aggressively you play. On my team, we've had concussions, we've had large cuts to the face. We had one kid who collided with another kid at a tournament, and the other kid, not our player, but the other player ended up with, I think it was like a dislocated shoulder and a mild concussion, so he got taken off in an ambulance, which wasn't great considering that the team doesn't live necessarily by the location of the tournament, so his team was from 4 hours away. I don't know if they just drove off without him or if they had to wait and try and get him back from the hospital. I'm not sure what happened there.
Well, I hope so. So what you're trying to say is Quidditch is more dangerous than football.
I don't know, honestly, because I heard about the level of concussions in football, but they do have all
Fair
that
enough.
protective gear as well. I
Exactly.
think also with
Yeah.
Quidditch, there's an option to go the tackling route, or you can choose to try and run fast and quick. And so I don't get injured a lot because of the way I play, but then other people on my team do get injured because of the way they choose to play. Whereas in football, everyone plays the same way.
We're going to go with Quidditch is more dangerous than football just because it makes a better title.
Which role do you usually play in Quidditch? In your team?
I usually play the chaser.
Oh,
Yeah.
cheers. All right. Quite interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a
Okay.
question for you. Sith or Jedi?
That's it.
That's kind of difficult, honestly, because obviously, like, the Jedi don't kill people as much as the Sith, but they also have all these crazy strict rules, and Sith are a little bit more flexible.
This is
Okay,
between-
Sith lightsabers look cooler, so I'm gonna go Sith.
I know, exactly. The choice is
Red
between killing
lightsabers.
people and having red lightsabers. And
Cool
it's always the red
lightsabers, cool red
lightsabers.
lightsabers.
It's a better excuse to kill if you're a Sith than a Jedi. Because
So
Jedi has
even-
principles.
So even you would choose
Yeah, it's,
being a Sith, Yashi.
no. I wanna okay, fair enough. Yeah, I probably would. Darth Vader is cool.
Yeah, one of the other clubs I participate in Boston is the Boston Lightsaber Stage Combat Club. So you basically take lightsabers and you learn how to do stage combat like you would for a play or something, and we put on different shows and things. So I have 2 lightsabers, and I think I'm obliged to say Sith since my blue lightsaber is still broken, because even though I was given the necessary equipment I needed to fix it, I've been procrastinating, and so it doesn't turn on.
If you think
Like-
about it, a Sith, if their lightsaber broke, a Sith would just steal another lightsaber. Have you seen a Sith making a lightsaber?
Well,
mean,
I feel
Sith-
like Kylo Ren's lightsaber was definitely made considering how bad.
How bad it was. It's in the lore that
Fair.
Kylo Ren made his lightsaber and it was like from an imperfect crystal. So that's why it's
Oh.
imperfect. It has all that excessive energy coming out. And sorry for nerding out.
Yes, I nod as an I knew every bit of that knowledge. Thank
Did you, Yashi?
Yes. Yeah.
Personally, I choose being a Grey Jedi because like they have the flexibilities of the Sith and they're like kind of the good guys, you know.
Yeah.
They
They
aren't
don't kill
considered
babies.
really evil as the Sith. Yeah, I think I'd go with a little bit of the gray areas. The Grey Jedi. Yellow lightsabers are quite unique too.
Yes, of course. The actual answer is Mandalorian. I mean, that's really obviously the actual answer,
That is
because
the way.
you get to take care of no, because you get to take care of Baby Yoda, and
Baby
that's the
Yoda.
best thing.
True.
Have you seen Baby Yoda? It's pretty cute.
I mean, you also like kind of lose your home planet and are permanently sad as a Mandalorian.
Yes, and I never get to take off my
Everything has
stinky
its
armor.
downsides.
I mean, technically, again, Baby Yoda versus losing all your people and, people who you love and care for. It's always Baby Yoda, of course.
Oh my God,
That's the
Rishi.
point. But yeah. What? It's obviously, that's the way.
You can't go to restaurants and eat with people.
But do you want to eat with people?
I mean, you can drink.
I
You
mean-
can drink using straw. You know, you can drink using straws,
Oh.
and the
Oh,
cantinas
you put the
like
straw.
they have.
You
And
put
the
the straw
canteen-
inside the helmet.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that's. You can always carry a packet of
It's
juice
good.
with you, and like a packet of juice on your armor and like a straws. You're always sipping juice.
You can drink, but you like couldn't go to get sushi or something.
That is a good point.
Mandalorian helmet should have like little eating holes.
Well, okay, good question. Let's go with this. Jetpacks or lightsabers?
Oh,
Ooh.
that's difficult. That's really difficult. Okay, even though I am majoring in aerospace and I should say jetpack, I'm going to say lightsaber, in part because if you have a jetpack and you use it, then suddenly like the FAA is going to notice, or some like the police are going to come and be like, someone's operating an unlicensed drone or something. And like in Iron Man, when he gets in trouble with the fighter jets, and it's just too much issues. It's much easier to conceal that you have a lightsaber. And if someone sees that you have a lightsaber, like no one's going to believe them if they turn you in. Whereas they might believe them if they say you have a jetpack. So it's a lot easier to hide having a lightsaber.
Yes, I mean, a flying human is more probable than a person who's cutting with a cauterized laser in their hand, which again collapses back into a small stick. So definitely lightsaber then. That's a good point. I might actually go with lightsabers too. Up to it's your choice. This is you make that. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go with jetpacks. That's because now I don't like. Imagine if you wake up late, right? And you have to get somewhere. Like how many times I've missed a class if I could just have a jetpack. If I just had a jetpack, I could get out of my hostel, right? And I just push it up and just Iron Man my way through it. It makes a good entry. If you think about it, imagine getting into a lecture hall with a jetpack.
I mean, imagine getting into a lecture hall by, like melting the door with a lightsaber, that's more impactful.
Yeah, jetpacks are really bulky too, and lecture seats are very small. So where are you going to put it?
You tell your friend to go away, and you put the jetpack on the friend's seat. I mean, if you have a jetpack, you really need friends. Think about it. Because if you have lightsaber, they'll just run away. So anyway, you're not going to have friends in either of the scenarios.
I mean, if you have a blue lightsaber, they won't. Red lightsabers are more dangerous looking. So I think it depends on the color of your lightsaber, maybe. So if you have a blue lightsaber,
it's just like traffic light, right? If you have a green lightsaber, it says go. If you have red lightsaber, it's just stop being friends with them forever. So easy to learn. Okay.
Oh,
I can't believe
that was a lot of that was a lot of nerding out, especially on Star Wars.
Okay. Yes, this is a STEM podcast, by the way, guys. Amazing, brilliant. Let's get back to some STEM questions we also had. Okay, because of the quarantine and everything, because we've already discussed how hard it has been for managing clubs' activities in quarantine. So what are your plans in future for the club? Do you think you have any kind of solution for it in any sense? Or are you just waiting for it to get over, the pandemic to get over?
Right. So next semester, we know that we'll still be all virtual. I guess, so what we've been doing so far has worked pretty well, but I think the biggest issue has been just getting a large number of people to come. We don't have food incentives, and generally people are pretty busy and stressed out and not participating as much in clubs. I think a lot of that might be helped in that we have elections coming back up in our chapter soon. And we recently made edits to our constitution to allow for the creation of like new officer positions in recruitment and marketing. And I'm hoping that by bringing in more people to talk about how we can get more people to come to our meetings, I'm hoping that we can improve attendance into the next semester. I'd also be interested in seeing us starting new technical groups and outreach that can be done virtually, since a lot of our outreach in the past was like going to science days and running demonstrations or something, but those don't exist anymore. And so we need to find a different way to do outreach. And I'd also, with the technical projects, our technical projects currently are really geared towards engineers, not so much scientists or interdisciplinary projects. I'd be very interested in seeing some things that could bring in people from other majors besides physics and aerospace engineering. I think it would be very cool to see a lot of more variety in what we're doing. So I'm going to be discussing all of this with the new officers once we've held elections.
Have you considered mailing the food?
MIT slashed the money that we get for clubs this semester. Normally they get the money from these like student life taxes we have to pay, but we didn't have to pay them this semester, and so they allocated like I think less than 1/10 of the money they would usually to clubs.
Yeah.
So
I think
not as much money for food.
So mailing food is not an option. Sad.
Mailing food is not an option. It would have worked beautifully though.
So, being a part of a SEDS club, you must have held some sky watching sessions, some observation sessions, right? So, do you miss the skies of Boston?
The skies of Boston don't have a lot of stars in them, in part because we're in the middle of a city, and also they have their big baseball stadium, which when it's baseball season, it like lights up the whole sky, like all of this light coming out in this giant beam, so you really can't see that much. I know that in the past, before I became president, we ran a camping trip actually to go out to somewhere where you can actually see the stars. And I'm really looking forward to running another camping trip for stargazing once the pandemic ends. But obviously, we keep saying this, a lot of things are hopefully happening with the pandemic.
Probable.
It's so frustrating, isn't it? Because we had a camping trip of our own for going to Skygaze at one point, and it just got cancelled before the pandemic hit. We had never had it because right before the pandemic hit, we were going to have it, and then it just got cancelled. It's all in the campus. So if you ever have floodlights on, we just tell them to shut it off so we can just have observations for us. It's a nice thing, and we just miss it a lot. So yeah, how is the night sky where you live? Like, how is it? Like, is it better than Boston?
No, it's worse. So I live in Seattle, Washington, which is known in part for raining a lot. Not heavy rain, just really light rain all of the time. Our skies are usually gray, and that means that most of the time you can't see any stars at all because the sky is covered in clouds. And it's also in the middle of a city. So you have the same problems as Boston, plus increased cloud coverage, which makes it even worse.
I mean, to be very honest, like once you experience that, looking at a clear sky, let's just lying down relaxing and looking at a clear, like it's really hard to just go back to your normal, boring gray skies and black skies from that. It's really hard.
Yeah, I have relatives who live out in Michigan in like farmlands, and from their houses The sky is really nice to look at, and that's the only time I can remember having seen the Milky Way is from my grandma's house.
That must be beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, Milky Way,
Okay.
I don't think we have been able to see that, right, Yashi? No.
That was our camping trip. That
That
was
was
what
a
our
camping
camping trip
trip.
was supposed to be. Please stop. Okay. Moving on from that really depressing topic, a lot of our audience is going to be fresher who have just joined college, and so how is the interaction in your college right now, especially people who have just come into it and don't know what to do with it and haven't interacted with seniors?
Right. So I'd say right now it's really good for freshmen. We have a lot of freshmen that have joined the club. Probably about half the people who are active are freshmen. And because we really are inviting, and it's not based on like your class rank, whether you're leading a project or not. It's based on how much interest you have and how much work you put in. The odd thing though is that I feel like our club membership changes based on who's leading it a bit, in that before me our co-presidents were graduate students and they're now advisors for the group. And so there was a lot more graduate students, and they were asking me, how can we attract more undergraduates? Now that I'm president, there's a fewer graduate students involved and there's more undergraduates. I'm trying to ask them, how can we involve more graduate students? So I think that that's the difficult thing, is we know how to attract people like us, but we can't figure out how to continuously attract the same two groups together, because one of the best things about it is that since we have both graduate and undergraduate students, you get to learn more about grad school and you get to interact more, which those two groups normally are completely separate. That's one of the changes that we recently made with adding new officers, is instead of just one recruitment officer, we're going to have undergraduate recruitment and graduate recruitment, so that we have two separate people who are in charge of both groups. And that way we can have a really diverse group of people that brings in a lot of different perspectives to our projects.
Yeah, so it was really great. It was a really amazing experience having you here, Izzy, and we are really thankful that you took out time for us.
No problem.
So this is all we have for this episode. We'll see you in the next episode of Celestia On-air, Deciphering STEM. Thank you for listening.